You didn't do anything wrong today. You sat down, maybe on the couch, maybe in bed, maybe you stared at the ceiling for a while. And somewhere in the quiet, before you could even enjoy it, a feeling crept in. Not peace, guilt. You started calculating how many hours you'd been still, what was left on your list, whether you'd earned this. And within minutes of doing nothing, you were already exhausted by the idea of it. This looks like laziness. It feels like laziness. But it isn't. It's something much older than that. And it says a lot more about how your mind learned to survive than it does about your character. You were not broken. You were not lazy. You were someone whose brain, at some point, learned a very specific equation. Worth equals output. And equations that deeply wired don't disappear when you sit on a couch. They follow you there. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from never feeling allowed to stop. And if you recognize yourself in that, this is for you. For many people, the relationship between rest and guilt begins so early it feels like personality. Not a learned behavior, just who they are. But trace it back far enough and you almost always find the same origin. An environment where stillness wasn't safe. Maybe productivity was how love was communicated. Maybe praise came when you achieved, and silence, or something worse, came when you didn't. Maybe you grew up watching someone run themselves into the ground, and somewhere in you, you absorbed the belief that this was what devotion looked like, that effort was the price of belonging. The nervous system is a fast learner. When it associates rest with danger, with criticism, with invisibility, with feeling like a burden, it begins to sound an alarm every time you go still. That alarm is guilt. It isn't your conscience. It's a warning system that's been misfiring for years, telling you that comfort is a liability. You didn't decide to feel this way. Your brain decided it on your behalf a long time ago, trying to keep you safe. Here's the part nobody tells you. The guilt isn't actually about the rest. The guilt is about identity. Because if your value is tied to what you produce, then stopping, even for an hour, feels like a threat to who you are. Rest doesn't just feel unproductive, it feels like disappearing. Like if you're not visibly doing something, you might not matter. This is called identity fusion with productivity, and it runs deeper than ambition. It's not that you love working, it's that you don't know who you are without it. The stillness doesn't feel peaceful, it feels like a void where proof of your worth should be. So the guilt isn't a reminder to work harder, it's a protective mechanism. It pulls you back toward action because action, for you, has always felt like solid ground. There's also something happening in the body that people rarely name. When you've been in a state of chronic doing, when your baseline is busy, your nervous system calibrates itself to that speed. It begins to read activity as normal and stillness as threat. Rest, physiologically, can actually feel like anxiety. Your cortisol dips. Your body doesn't know what to do with the quiet. So it manufactures urgency where there is none. Think of it like a car that's been left running for years. When you finally turn off the engine, there's a moment of wrongness. Not because anything is wrong, but because the silence is unfamiliar. This is why rest doesn't come naturally to people who've been running on guilt. It has to be practiced. Not because they're failing at relaxation, but because their nervous system has been trained to interpret calm as a problem. The behavior also shifts across your life in interesting ways. In your 20s, the guilt often comes with urgency, the sense that there is no time, that everyone else is building something while you lie still. In your 30s, it layers with responsibility. Rest begins to feel indulgent in the face of everything you owe to other people, to family, to work, to the person you told yourself you would become. Later still, rest can feel almost confrontational, like a reckoning with everything you pushed aside. The guilt changes shape, but the root stays the same. The quiet belief, written into you long before you had words for it, that you are only as worthy as you are useful. What guilt about resting is really doing, at its core, is regulating something. It's not just punishing you, it's keeping you predictable to yourself. In a world that often feels uncontrollable, productivity is something you can manage, checking things off, moving forward, measuring progress. These are anchors. They give shape to a day and meaning to a self. Rest removes those anchors. And without them, some people don't feel free. They feel unmoored. Guilt rushes in not to punish, but to stabilize. To say, here is something familiar. Here is solid ground. That's not weakness. That's the mind doing exactly what it was designed to do, finding safety in what it knows. If you feel guilty for resting, you are not someone who doesn't care about their life. You are someone who cares so much, who absorbed so much, that even your downtime became a battleground. You are not failing at rest. You are carrying an old belief that was handed to you before you were old enough to question it. A belief that you had to earn your place, that stillness was a luxury, not a right, that the only way to be sure you mattered was to keep going. You've been going for a long time. The guilt makes sense. It always made sense. It was the mind doing its job, protecting what felt most fragile, your sense of worth, your sense of belonging. But worth was never something you had to earn. It was always already yours. And rest, real rest, the kind that has nothing to prove and nowhere to be, has been waiting for you, not as a reward, as a right.